Before I start the video, I want to say that a lot of people watch my videos without a subscription. If my content resonates with you, you could subscribe to the channel, thus YouTube would promote it more, which in turn would motivate me to release and improve content more often. Thank you. It was an ordinary day at school, or at least that's what I thought. I was in my physics class, trying my best to understand the complicated equations that the teacher was explaining. He was a strange man, always behaving oddly and examining us from head to toe, as if he was looking for something. It made me feel uncomfortable, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why. Things took a sinister turn when the physics teacher was arrested for touching a little girl. I was horrified to think that I had been in the same room as him, breathing the same air. However, my horror was short-lived as he was released after a few weeks and returned to teach at our school. I couldn't understand how someone who had been accused of such a heinous crime could be allowed to continue working with children. As the weeks went on, I noticed that the physics teacher was behaving even more strangely than before. He would often leave the children after classes, and it seemed like he was taking his time as if he had nowhere else to go. Sometimes he would touch us inappropriately, and I could feel his eyes on me even when he wasn't looking directly at me. One day, my friend and I were the last ones in class, and the physics teacher asked us to stay behind. He said he had a proposition for us, that he would pay us money if we came to his house. Of course, we refused, but he kept raising the amount until we were both uncomfortable. Suddenly, he closed the door and attacked us. We tried to run, but he threw textbooks at us, hitting my friend in the temple, and she fell to the ground unconscious. I was terrified. I thought he had killed her. The physics teacher must have realized the gravity of what he had done and ran out of the room. I quickly called for an ambulance, and my friend was taken to the hospital. Thankfully, she was okay, but the incident left us both shaken to our core. It wasn't until a few days later that the physics teacher was caught in a store, acting as if nothing had happened. He was taken into custody and put behind bars where he belonged. I shuddered to think about what he could have done if he had managed to get us to his house. The incident stayed with me for a long time, and it took a while for me to feel safe again. The school took steps to prevent such incidents from happening again, but the memory of the physics teacher's behavior still haunts me. I never knew what he was capable of until that day, and I'm grateful that my friend and I were able to get away safely. In the end, justice was served, and the physics teacher paid for his crimes. My friend made a full recovery and life moved on. But the memory of that day remains etched in my mind, a reminder of the horrors that can lurk behind the facade of even the most ordinary of places. Every school has a story. Some are made up, and some have parts of the truth. Big Brain School had a story too, in which almost everything was true. Once upon a time it wasn't a school at all, but an apartment building. The house had 5 floors, our school had 4, by the way. A rich lady lived there. No one lived in the house but her. One day the lady had her 12-year-old niece, Rosie, come to visit for a week. Rosie liked the 5th floor the best. Big, spacious rooms, soft carpets, wonderful furniture. So Rosie chose the 5th floor to live on. She went to bed. She had a strange dream. She was lying on a bed. The bed was floating in a white void. The bottom is empty, the top is empty. Then the bed begins to shake. It shakes more and more. And then it flips over and Rosie falls into the white void. Suddenly red spots begin to appear around Rosie, as if someone had dropped red ink on a piece of blank paper. Down below, Rosie sees red spikes, and she screams and falls on those spikes. The girl had these dreams for 5 days. She tried to tell her aunt everything, but she wrote it off as a nightmare. On the 6th day, Rosie didn't dream anything. She slept peacefully, but she was awakened by a strange whisper. It was quiet and unintelligible. Then Rosie noticed that the room had changed. All the furniture was gone. The walls had gone from pink to white. There was no window or door. Rosie screamed, but a croak came out of her throat. She fell to the floor. Just then, something appeared on the wall and disappeared in the same instant. Rosie looked closely at the wall. There were people on it, and though they flashed very quickly, Rosie could see them very well. There were people with terrible injuries. A girl lying, her mouth and eyes stitched together. A boy with no arms and no nose lying in a pool of blood. A girl leaning against the wall, her belly cut open, one eye cut out, no lips. Rosie couldn't see it. She started banging her head against the wall, in unbearable pain, screaming, but not stopping. Her aunt woke up to a distant noise on the 5th floor. She ran up there. There was the 4th floor, there was the hallway, and there should be stairs. There should be. There are no stairs, and no 5th floor. After that, the lady moved out of the house, and Rosie was never seen again. Jenny, Hugh, Alice, Sam, and Mitchie didn't believe the story. Stories for babies, horror stories for snot-nosed kids, lies on a plate. That's what the 5 friends called the story. One day they decided to play hide-and-seek on the 4th floor. It was Sam's turn to drive. He started counting slowly. The boys, giggling, ran to a place they had long since spotted. At the end of the corridor, behind the big silk curtains. There, Sam finished counting. His friends heard his footsteps down the hall. He looked into the toilets, checked the plants, walked around the empty classrooms. The boys could barely contain their laughter. She couldn't hold back any longer, she giggled. Everyone hissed at her, but it was too late. Sam heard and shouted. Aha! Alice ducked out from under the curtains and saw a white stairway up directly in front of her. She whispered, "Guys, over here, quick." Everyone rushed up. Only Jenny remembered that there hadn't been stairs before, but there was no time to think about it, and the crowd drew her up. They all piled into the 5th floor. The door slammed shut behind them. Only now did they realize where they were. The boys looked at each other in fear. It was Mitchie who came to his senses first. What happened? Are you blind? Alice jumped on him. We're on a floor that doesn't exist. Why are you yelling at me? Mitchie in turn yelled at Alice. Jenny, who was the calmer and wiser of the bunch, rushed to intervene in the argument. Stop it. Calm down. Let's take a look around. I totally agree, Q said. I think we should just open the door, said Alice, who always thought she was right, and haughtily pushed the door. Zero effect. Mitchie laughed. Alice glared at him angrily, but then Q spoke up. I think Jenny's right. Let's split up and see what this place is all about. She looked back at Jenny. She smiled encouragingly, and Q continued a little more confidently. I'll go with Jenny to the left, and you go to the right. Alice and Mitchie reluctantly agreed, and everyone scattered to the floor. Jenny and Q saw a room and went in. A room was like a room, only empty and lifeless, with white walls, ceiling and floor. There wasn't a single window. Hugh felt uncomfortable. It was too quiet, but it wasn't for long. The door they came in slammed shut. Jenny flinched. She looked first at Q, then at the door, and threw herself against it with all her might. The door stood as strong as before. Then suddenly a girl of about 12 appeared in the middle of the room. She was floating in the air, wearing a white nightgown with red bloodstains. She had long red hair, thin, long blood-stained lips, red eyes. Blood! I want blood! She suddenly shouted. A long needle appeared in her hand, and she stuck it in her arm, then yanked the needle from there, flew over to Q, and stuck the needle right in her side. Q cried out in pain. A drop of her blood splashed on the door, and it opened. Jenny rushed to Q, picked her up, and ran with her out of the room. They heard the laughter of the killer girl for a long time. Finally, Jenny stopped and laid Q on the floor. Are you in pain? Yes, very much. Q answered faintly. You'll be all right, Jenny said. Calm down, it's going to be all right. She ripped a piece of her school dress and started to wrap it around Q's wound, repeating, it's going to be all right. No, you don't understand. Her blood is poison. There's nothing you can do. The tears rolled from Q's eyes, and she let out a death moan. Alice and Mitchie walked down the corridor. It was quiet, and their friends were resentfully silent. A door swung open in front of them, as if from nowhere. Mitchie pushed it open. They entered. A white room with a window. Look, a window, a window. Mitchie shouted excitedly. I see it. Alice shouted, but only out of habit. In fact, she was ready to kiss Mitchie. They rushed to open the window. When they opened it, they didn't see the usual schoolyard, just a white void. It was as if someone had pushed them out, and they fell like a stone. They found themselves in the same room with the same window. The children looked at each other with big, frightened eyes and rushed to the window. And once again they were in the same room. But there was a change. In the corner sat Sam. Sam! Alice and Mitchie exclaimed with glee. Guys, Sam rejoiced. After they hugged, Mitchie asked, How'd you get here? The smile slid off Sam's face and was replaced by consternation. And he began in a trembling voice. I heard you, so I went to the sound, but I didn't find you. But I saw the stairs to the 5th floor. I hesitated. Should I go, should I not go? But then something drew me upstairs. I climbed up the stairs like an enchanted man. When I got there, the door slammed, and I woke up. I was frightened, but there was nothing to do, so I walked down the corridor. Saw a room, went in. A real white box. The door was gone. Then, in the middle of the room, a girl appeared in midair. You know, like dead, a redhead, in a white nightie. She came towards me, and there was nowhere to run. She took my hand. She had a hand like an iron. She whispered in my ear, We'll meet again, and I started to fall. I fell here. That's it. Yeah, Sam, Alice said. She wanted to add something else, but her gaze accidentally fell into the corner, and she yelled, Look, there's blood. And there was indeed blood gushing out of the corner, a whiff of cold. She appeared in the middle of the room, a girl in a white nightgown, with red hair and red eyes and bloodshot lips. In her hand was a shiny, sharp knife. I told you we'd meet, she smiled at Sam. He couldn't move. He looked at her and couldn't do anything. She slowly began to cut off his fingers. The boys wanted to help their friend. They wanted to tear the nasty girl apart. It was as if she could sense the children's thoughts, turned her head toward them with a nasty smile, and whispered with one lip, Don't you dare. The children went numb, and Sam wheezed in pain, tears in his eyes. There was nothing he could do. Then the girl cut off his head. Finally she smiled at the children and disappeared. The children looked at each other and ran towards the door that had just appeared. They found themselves in the corridor, and they raced down it until they were out of breath. Hurrah! There was Jenny sitting on her knees in front of them. But who was lying in front of her, and why was she crying? Alice and Mitchie looked closely. No, they shouted. Q was lying on the floor in a pool of fresh blood. Then Mitchie saw the door. He didn't know if the door would open, but he could feel it. He shouted, the door, let's go quickly. Yes, picked up Alice. Let's go, Jenny. I won't leave Q, she whispered. There's nothing you can do for her. Alice shouted through her tears. Yes, Jenny. Holding on, Mitchie shouted. He and Alice picked Jenny up and dragged her to the door. The door opened. They rolled down the stairs. Jenny caught a glimpse of the same ghost girl. Next to her, Rosie was written on the wall. The stairs disappeared. 10 years went by. Alice and Mitchie got married and had a girl and a boy. They named the boy Sam, and the girl T. Jenny also married Deuce, Alice's brother. They lived happily ever after, but still remember with fear and bitterness the story.